ladies, to another edition of Creepshow. Today we are looking at the NECA Creepshow, the Creep figure based on the original Creepshow film. A little while back we got the Creep from the Shudder TV series of Creepshow, and I really enjoyed that figure, but I definitely was left wanting for the original version of the Creep, or Raoul as I think he's known. So when this thing was announced, I was very excited to get my hands on him. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Like the previous release, we get a little tiny version of the Creepshow comic, this time the one from the movie itself, so we got Zombie Nate there on the front. On the back, we have some previews of other things. I don't think these are the ones from the movie. It's really hard to see because it's so little. I think these are different stories, but I think that's accurate to the comic in the movie. And then on the inside, we have some panels from the They're Creeping Up on You section. Also, like the one from the previous release, there's just these two internal pages. There's not like the full comic in there. I wouldn't have expected a full comic in there. It's really just a piece of paper printed front and back and then folded. But I think it really works with, the theme of what this is and for a prop this small. We also get this little candle. It's got a nice little flame effect. Actually looks way better on camera than it does to the naked eye in terms of it looking like an actual flame going on there. But it's kind of got a black base and then the green candle melting and then the yellow and orange flame coming out of the top. Turn it around, you can see it's melted on one side more than the other. So nothing crazy, but a nice little accessory. And last we have this little jack-o'-lantern that we see sitting outside of Joe Hill's house or Tom Atkins' house, whoever's house that is, I guess. I guess it's really Tom Atkins' house. It's just not even outside of their house, it's in their window. So this whole statement is inaccurate. But yeah, it's a nice goofy little jack-o'-lantern. It's detailed all the way around. It's kind of at an angle where the face is kind of pointing up, but I always like when you can kind of turn a jack-o'-lantern prop or accessory around and have it look like a normal pumpkin on the back. I feel like that kind of is nice for, scene building for other things. And the cool part with this one is the top actually comes off. So that'll pop off. It actually has some pumpkin guts on the top of it. And it's kind of hard to get to balance here, but it does have kind of a pumpkin guts texture on the inside as well. So that's a nice little accessory. The only problem is the lid never sits fully flush on there, at least so far as I've been able to get it. So you can't really get it to look like an uncarved pumpkin, but it's a jack-o'-lantern first and foremost, and I think it works like that. For the figure, we get 3 unique head sculpts. Really, actually, 2 very similar head sculpts with different hair, and then 1 unique head sculpt. So this is the one I had on it in the intro there. It is the kind of decomposing flesh look with the hair kind of matted forward. The second head sculpt is very similar, except the hair is kind of flaying out of the front, giving that wind-blown effect from the beginning of the movie when he's outside the window. This one also has its eyes facing more straight forward, where the other one was kind of looking off to the right. And the other sculpt, the eyes were a little more open. This one you can see a bit more of the eyelids. And then lastly, you have the poster version of the character. So instead of it being kind of a rotting body, it is more of a skull with a single eye. The hair is a little more clumped up together and kind of flowing off to the side. So here's a better look at that first head sculpt. I do love the decayed flesh look. A lot of great kind of grays and kind of brown highlights and stuff to bring out the skull. As I mentioned, the eyes are kind of looking off to the side. If you turn them to the side, we can see that the hair is very swept forward. It's kind of a translucent clear, but it has some white paint on there to kind of bring out the detail. Both of these zombie heads also have the ability to open the mouth, so you can actually get that hinged open, which is really cool. And if we bring the hood of his cloak in, it does have a bendy wire in it again, so you can kind of cinch it down over his hair, and I think it looks pretty good. It has a pretty natural flow underneath there, and without having the soft goods hair or whatever you want to call that that the previous release had, you really can keep this from looking as goofy as that one sometimes can. Here's that second head. Once again, very similar in terms of detail and paint apps and all that. It is a bit harder to get the hood around his hair, as you might expect, just because there's more in the way here. So the hood kind of has to be peeled back a little further around the sides of his head to get it kind of connecting properly at the top. So this one does take a bit more work, and honestly I think I prefer the first head just in terms of the way the hair lays and the way the hood fits on it. But I do like that they gave us the option to kind of have this version of it, since it is definitely very windy and he looks very windswept in that introduction in the film. And there he is with the hood down for the poster version. You can see the hair is a bit darker in the back. I think it might actually just be really translucent over a painted skull, but it does get lighter there with white at the tips of it. Similar to the other head, it is very easy to get the hood around here because the hair doesn't flare out quite as much. I think the detail here is really good. I love the eyeball kind of dangling out of the socket. It is really mostly just a skull head, but it is kind of a desiccated skull. It's all kind of beat up and gross looking. Has some really nice grimy color to it. And I think I initially said that only the other two had an opening mouth, but this one does too. So all three can open their mouths at will. I will say having this head does make me wish they would have given us another hand that had the tickets in it from the poster, so we could really replicate that look. But you know, that would also mean I'd be sitting here saying I wish we had the full ticket booth, which I really do wish we had the full ticket booth, but no such luck, I guess. So as I mentioned, the hood has a bendy wire around the kind of rim of it, but also one going in the back of the head. This is similar to what we had with the previous release as well, but that one, it kind of sat more as like a cap, like a stocking cap at the back of his head. And this one maybe does that, but he has this thick scarf going around his neck. So if it is back there, it's kind of nicely hidden, which I really like. This robe seems like it's similar material to the first one, but the fact that they were able to do this wrap around his neck in this method, I think looks a lot better than those little nylon straps that the first one had, so I really appreciate that. Beyond that, the robe going down is pretty much what you would expect. It's just the cloth. It's frayed at the edges, both on the wrists and at the very bottom. This one is also longer, so when he's just kind of in the normal pose, his feet are completely hidden, and honestly, his hands are pretty well covered, depending on the pose as well. I don't want to risk damaging this guy by fully unrobing him, but I do believe he is the same body that we got in the previous release. You can see it is fully sculpted underneath, which I definitely is one thing I liked about the first release and still enjoy here. Still really do think we need to get a Night of the Creeps body out of this, since we did get the Tom Atkins, but we need Tom Atkins scaled down, I guess. But it looks really good here. They did also put a bendy wire on the seams on either side of his robe, so you can kind of bend and contort that to your needs. We only get two hands this time, the ones he comes with, so we have this kind of open hand here on his right side. Kind of see the skeleton underneath it. I was trying to remember, I know some version of this puppet was made out of an actual human skeleton, or at least that was the rumor, and I think it was the window one. So, I mean, this is, I guess, literally based on an actual human. And then his left hand kind of has this kind of odd pose. The fingers are kind of curled under, and he's almost gesturing with his finger. You can kind of use this to get him to hold the book a little bit. Seems hard to get him to hold the candle, but maybe you could do that if you were being a little more cavalier than I'm willing to be with it. It would have been kind of nice if they gave us two hands to really hold the comic, even though he doesn't really do that in the movie. But seeing as though I don't think we're getting a Joe Hill figure anytime soon, it would have been a nice thing to include. For articulation, we already mentioned the jaw. He has a ball joint at the head, so you can move that very, very freely on there. The arms will rotate forward. Back, really limited by the clothing than anything else. They will hinge out to the side pretty far. They'll go in pretty tight to the body. We have a double jointed elbow that bends in pretty much as far as you'd ever want. It also will swivel at that elbow. The hands will rotate as well as hinge up and down. We have a mid-torso joint here, so you could swivel, bend forward and back a little bit, as well as pivot a little bit. The legs will kick forward, they'll kick back, they'll go out to the side. Can you even tell what I'm doing here? They will rotate at the upper leg. They have a single joint at the knee that will bend about 90 degrees. It will also rotate there. And the feet will hinge up, down, and pivot. And we do also have peg holes down there. For a size comparison, here's our new Creep next to the TV show version of the Creep. No real surprises here, same body, just different heads. However, you can see the vast differences between the two robes, both in style and just general quality, I guess. I think I said this might be the same material. It looks like the one for the older Creep is a little thicker material. I do like the way that one frays a little bit more than the kind of Kermit the Frog fray we've got going on here. But you know what? It works either way. And I guess just for a regular human to drop in here, well, I guess it's a T-1000 from that movie we choose to not remember existed. And then a more intimidating person, this is the H40 body. I just kind of modded it to be a H78. They're roughly the same height. So overall, I really like this figure. I think it is superior to the previous release. Maybe just because I love the first movie, and even though I did like the first season of the show, and I don't know if I ever really watched the second season, it's more nostalgic for me to have the original version of the Creep. I think the accessories he came with are pretty cool. I especially love the pumpkin. I don't know if I'll ever really display it with the Creep, but I feel like I could use it for a lot of other things, so that's great. The candles kind of hit or miss, honestly, but I like the 3 different head sculpts it came with. The body's well articulated. No complaints about them reusing the body because it's fine as it is. I think they did improve the soft goods this time, even though I did like the fraying on the other clothing. I will take the less cool looking fraying here, especially because it doesn't have those weird little like hanging ribbon pieces. And I think having the sculpted hair as well is definitely a plus. Granted, I think it works better with this version of the character than with the TV show version, but yeah, I'm definitely going to recommend this guy, and I will once again say I really hope that NECA does do more Creepshow stuff, especially now. I think before there was conversation that like, oh, well, they didn't have the rights to the original. Obviously, they do now, so yeah, give us a Crate Beast, give us Zombie Nate. Definitely want those kind of characters. But that's it for this review. I'll see you guys next time. Later.